Silence is power. In a world addicted to noise, to opinions, to validation, to being heard, there is one power most people fear without ever naming it. Silence. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of submission, but the silence of control, of strategy, of presence so sharp it cuts without speaking. Machiavelli understood something most people will never grasp. Power does not belong to the one who speaks the most, but to the one who knows when not to speak at all. You see, the crowd equates silence with passivity. They see it as empty, awkward, vulnerable. They fear silence because it forces them to feel, to wonder, to expose themselves. And that's where true power lives, not in the loud, not in the reactive, but in the one who waits, who watches, who lets others reveal themselves, while he reveals nothing. Strategic silence is dominance in slow motion. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it simply listens. And in that listening, it learns everything. This is not about shyness, this is not about hiding. This is about mastering restraint, holding your tongue like a blade, only unsheathing it when the timing is perfect. Words are weapons, but silence is war. We've been taught since childhood that to lead is to speak clearly, to speak loudly, to speak often. But here's the harsh truth. Most people talk not to lead, but to hide. They talk to prove they matter. They talk to fill the silence that terrifies them. They talk because they equate noise with strength and silence with weakness. But Machiavelli knew better. He knew that the ones who talk the most are often the least in control. Because true power doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't crave validation. It doesn't fear being misunderstood. Real power observes, real power listens, real power waits. Those who dominate conversations rarely dominate situations. Because while they're busy speaking, they're also busy exposing themselves. They reveal their thoughts, their fears, their strategies, their insecurities, and those who understand silence collect those confessions like weapons. Strategic silence is a trap, a mirror, a stage others don't realize they've stepped onto. You let them speak, you nod, you watch, and in their eagerness to be seen, they give you everything. They give you access, they give you weakness, they give you leverage. Machiavelli warned, "He who speaks too soon exposes his own defeat." Authority built on volume is a bluff, a desperate attempt to appear in control when control has already been lost. Look closely. Who do people respect in a room? The one who dominates the air, or the one who speaks rarely? But when they do, the entire room listens. We admire what is measured, what is intentional, what is held back. Because restraint signals power, and power is magnetic. The more you speak, the more you explain. The more you explain, the more you negotiate your presence. And every negotiation chips away at your position. Silence, on the other hand, makes people guess, and when they have to guess, you stay ahead. They project onto you. They fear what they don't understand, and that fear is power in your hands. So stop thinking authority means being heard. Sometimes the most commanding thing you can do is say nothing at all. Silence is not passive. It's not emptiness, it's not weakness. Strategic silence is architecture. It has structure, it has direction, it has intention. It is the art of knowing when to say nothing, why to say nothing, and what that silence is silently doing. Machiavelli understood. Every conversation is a battlefield, every word an arrow, every pause a shield. And silence is terrain. The one who controls it controls the war. Strategic silence is never just absence, it's pressure, it's tension, it's oxygen removed from the room. It creates discomfort, and in that discomfort, others expose themselves. They speak to escape the silence. They fill the space with nervous honesty. They reveal things they never intended. because the silence was too heavy to carry. And while they speak, you gather, you read, you learn, you store information like ammunition. You're not avoiding the conversation. You're controlling it without appearing to. Because strategic silence isn't about retreat. It's about dominance through restraint. It's the pause before the strike, the void that turns a whisper into a roar, the mirror that forces others to look at themselves. And in this modern world, where everyone is addicted to being seen, to reacting, to posting, to proving, those who master silence stand out like giants. They don't chase attention, they pull it. They don't rush to speak, they make others wait. And in that waiting, they build authority, because what's held back is always more powerful than what's spilled carelessly. Silence is also a test. When you say nothing, you see who panics, who breaks, who fills the air out of insecurity, who needs noise to feel relevant. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. A wise ruler never reveals his intentions. He observes, he listens, he holds. Because when you speak, you give, you surrender ground. But when you remain still, you collect ground without ever moving. Strategic silence is not about being unreadable, it's about being undecodable. When others don't know what you're thinking, they cannot predict you. If they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. That is power. So speak when it serves your strategy. And until then, let your silence speak louder than any sentence ever could. Uncertainty is chaos, and whoever controls chaos controls the game. Most people fear uncertainty. They rush to fill the unknown with anything. Explanations, assumptions, noise, because not knowing makes them feel powerless. But Machiavelli knew the opposite. Uncertainty is power, when you're the one creating it. When people don't know what you're thinking, they can't prepare. When they don't know what you want, they can't defend. When they don't know your next move, they waste their energy imagining it. And while they're distracted by possibilities, you gain time, you gain space, you gain leverage. This is control in its purest form. And it begins with strategic silence. When you stop oversharing, when you stop explaining your every move, when you stop needing to be understood, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is terrifying to those who only feel safe when they can label you, define you, and box you in. Let them guess. Let them worry. Let them wonder if you're one step ahead or watching from above. Because as long as they are uncertain, you remain in control. And here's the paradox. They'll try harder to understand you the less you reveal. They'll lean in, they'll obsess, they'll project their fears onto you, and every guess they make gives you more power. Because the moment they reveal what they think you might do, they show you who they are, their fears, their expectations, their blind spots, all delivered to you on a silver platter because you stayed quiet. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to intimidate. You only need to be unreadable, and suddenly you become untouchable. Remember, certainty is comfort, but comfort is control for someone else. The one who controls the narrative is not the one who speaks loudest, but the one whose silence leaves space for 1,000 interpretations. And in that space, you don't just control the conversation, you become the conversation. This is why the wise speak less. Not because they lack something to say, but because they know silence breeds tension, and tension breeds control. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to fill the silence, to prove your point, pause. Let the silence do the work. Let the uncertainty spread, let them talk, and while they do, you gather power quietly, completely, inevitably. Most people don't talk to communicate, they talk to cope. They talk because silence is unbearable, because stillness feels like rejection, because they believe if they're not being heard, they're disappearing. But Machiavelli understood a different truth. Those who speak too much betray themselves, not intentionally, but because they don't know when to stop. They give away thoughts that should have stayed protected. They expose plans that should have stayed hidden. They reveal emotions that could have been used against them. And why? Because they fear the discomfort of being misunderstood, unseen, uncertain. They think constant communication equals control. But in reality, it's the opposite. The more you explain, the more you negotiate your power. And negotiation is a form of weakness in a world that rewards mystery over accessibility. Let's be clear, this is not about lying. It's not about hiding out of fear. It's about discipline. It's about understanding that words are not just sounds. They are doors. Every time you speak, you open one. And behind every open door is a part of your strategy, your vulnerability, your psychology now left exposed. When you talk too much, you build a map of your mind for others to read. They trace your patterns, they hear your doubts, they spot the cracks in your armor and prepare their attack accordingly. Machiavelli warned of this. Never give away what could be used against you later. And that includes your thoughts, your emotions, your worldview. There is a reason why the quiet ones are often seen as more intelligent. Not always because they are, but because they reveal less. And what is hidden is always assumed to be greater than what is seen. Overexposure is not just careless, it's self-sabotage. It turns you from strategist to spectacle, from architect to entertainer, from leader to performer. And most people don't realize they've crossed the line until it's far too late. The solution: learn the rhythm of strategic withholding. Don't speak everything you feel. Don't share every idea as it forms. Don't open doors no one asked to enter. Every word you speak should be the result of intention, not impulse. Because every word costs something. And the ones who talk without restraint eventually pay the highest price. They lose their mystery. And once your mystery is gone, so is your leverage. So next time you feel the urge to explain, to confess, to elaborate, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve my purpose? Or does it just serve my need to be seen? Speak with precision. Speak with restraint. And remember, those who speak the least are often heard the loudest. You don't need to corner your opponents. You don't need to pressure anyone. You don't need to fight for information. All you have to do is this: stay silent. Let them talk. Let them rush to fill the gap. Let the tension do your work for you. Because here's the truth: most people can't handle empty space. They feel the silence like a threat, like judgment, like rejection. So they scramble. They talk too much. They reveal what they were trying to hide, just to escape the discomfort of not knowing what you're thinking. And that's when you collect. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. The less you say, the more they show. The more uncertain they are about you, the more they try to explain themselves, to justify, to impress, to defend. And in those reactions, they hand you their psychology on a silver platter. You see their patterns, their fears, their insecurities, their weaknesses, not because you forced them, but because they couldn't tolerate your stillness. This is power without noise, dominance without confrontation, victory without motion. Let them speak, let them guess. Let them try to decode your silence, because the more they guess, the more they reveal what they would do, not what you would. And that's the secret. When you stay still, you become the mirror. You reflect what they project. You become the stage on which their own fears and ambitions play out. And while they're performing, you're taking notes, you're learning, you're gaining ground. This is why the most powerful people say the least in meetings. They don't interrupt, they don't over-explain, they don't rush to clarify. They observe. They let the others talk themselves into a corner, because words are currency, and most people spend too much too fast. Let them overshare. Let them expose their doubts. Let them build your strategy for you without realizing they're giving you everything you need. This isn't manipulation, it's discipline, it's wisdom. It's understanding that silence is not just a defense. It's an invitation, one that says, go ahead. Show me who you really are. And if you can master the strength to sit in that silence, to let others reveal themselves fully while you reveal nothing, you won't just win the room, you'll own it. The most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest, not the most charming, not even the most skilled. It's the one you can't read, the one whose face doesn't give anything away, the one who smiles but never reveals what they're thinking, the one who makes you question yourself without saying a single word. That's not weakness, that's leverage, because when people don't know your intentions, they can't prepare for your moves. When they don't know your limits, they don't know when they've crossed them. When they can't predict your behavior, they tiptoe, carefully. That's not fear, that's respect, disguised as caution. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Mystery is power, and mystery is built in silence. The more you say, the more they decode. The more they decode, the more they devalue you. But when you hold back, when you leave room for speculation, your presence begins to expand. You become more than a person. You become a question, and questions are powerful because the mind hates unanswered things. So people begin to watch you differently. They replay your words. They wonder what you meant. They guess what you're planning. And that guessing game, it keeps them off balance. It keeps you in control. Understand this. People are more afraid of the unknown than of the known dangerous. If they think you're calm, but they're not sure why, if you seem kind but never naive, if you smile but never explain, they don't know whether to trust you, fear you, or follow you. So they do all three, quietly. This is not manipulation, it's restraint. It's knowing that power isn't always about being understood, it's about being undeniable. Mystery doesn't mean being vague, it means being deliberately incomplete. You show them enough to spark interest, but never enough to hand over your playbook. You let your presence work harder than your voice. You let their imagination do more damage than your words ever could. And here's the paradox. The less you say, the more people lean in. Not because they care about you, but because they care about themselves. They want to solve you, control you, predict you, and they never will, because you didn't come here to be solved. You came here to be felt. So speak less, reveal less, and let the mystery speak on your behalf. Because in a world where everyone is busy trying to be understood, you will rise by being unforgettable. Power is not always about what you do. Sometimes it's about what you choose not to do. Anyone can react. Anyone can speak their mind. Anyone can explode when pushed. But the ones who hold, the ones who wait, the ones who let the storm pass without blinking, they're the ones who are truly in control. Machiavelli understood this. Power is not proven through action, it's proven through restraint. Restraint is the highest form of dominance because it means you're not ruled by impulse, by ego, or by the desperate need to be right. You don't respond to every provocation. You don't explain yourself to every critic. You don't fight battles that aren't worth your breath. That's not weakness. That's refinement. It's choosing the long game over the emotional release. It's choosing position over validation. It's choosing timing over impulse. Because once you act, you reveal, you show your hand, you give away leverage. But when you pause, when you observe, when you let others act out, overreact, unravel, you remain centered, untouched, unshaken. Restraint confuses the impatient, it frustrates the insecure, it disturbs the impulsive, because they're used to reactions, they're used to dominance through noise. But when you don't react, when you simply exist in silence, you force others to face themselves, and most people can't. That's why restraint is feared. It looks like inaction, but it's actually surgical precision. Every second you wait is a test of them and of you. You learn their patterns, you watch their moves, you calculate the cost of every word, every shift, every breath. Because power is not found in how much you say, but in how much you choose not to. The strong strike only when the moment is perfect. The wise don't rush to prove anything, and the sovereign don't need to be seen to be felt. So next time someone tries to provoke you, push you, bait you into a reaction, pause. Wait. Let them fall into the emptiness you left for them. Let their impatience become their weakness. Because when you master the art of restraint, you don't just win more battles. You stop needing to fight them at all. People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't predict, what they can't read, what they can't control. And nothing is harder to decode than someone who stays silent, not out of weakness, not out of shyness, but out of sheer calculated dominance. Machiavelli knew this. A silent presence speaks louder than 1,000 desperate words, because silence forces reflection. It creates discomfort, it leaves space, and most people don't know how to exist in that space, so they fill it. With nervous laughter, with too much talking, with over-explanation, with fear. They fear your silence, not because it's empty, but because it demands something of them. Honesty. And that's the one thing most people are terrified to face. They want you to explain, to clarify, to react, because if you speak, they feel safe again. They can categorize you, dismiss you, put you back in a box. But when you stay still, when you let your silence hang in the air like a blade, you become impossible to place. And what we can't place, we can't control. What we can't control, we learn to fear. That's why the quiet one in the room often holds the most power, because people begin to wonder, what are they thinking? What do they know? Why aren't they saying anything? Are they judging me? Do they see something I don't? Your silence becomes their mirror, and most people don't like what they see, because in your stillness, they're forced to hear their own voice, and often what echoes back is weakness, insecurity, noise. You didn't do anything, you simply didn't react. And that's what makes it so threatening, because silence, when used with presence, is not absence, it's pressure. It shifts the atmosphere, it slows the room down, it makes people lean in, not to listen, but to survive the weight of the unknown. That's how you control without speaking. That's how you dominate without force, by becoming the question no one can answer. So don't rush to fill the silence. Don't try to be understood by everyone. Don't apologize for your stillness. Instead, own it. Because the world may admire charisma, but it respects what it can't predict. And in the end, what is feared is always more powerful than what is simply liked. Silence earns you presence. But when you finally speak, your words must earn their place, because after silence, everything you say will sound louder, sharper, heavier, and that is your advantage. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Power is not found in constant expression, but in intentional expression. When you've built a reputation for restraint, every sentence becomes a signal. Every word, an action, every pause, part of the message. So when you finally speak, make it surgical. Speak to move the room, not to fill it. Speak to strike, not to entertain. Don't ramble, don't explain. Don't dilute your message to make it palatable, because watered-down truth is just another form of weakness. Say exactly what needs to be said. No more, no less. And when you're done, return to silence. Let your words echo. Let them fill the space long after your voice has stopped. Because here's the truth. The fewer words you use, the more each one matters. This is the essence of verbal power, not vocabulary, not volume. Not charisma, but clarity, intention, edge. Speak with the same precision you'd use to pull a trigger. Not out of violence, but out of discipline. Because once your words are out, you don't get them back. They become public. They become tools or liabilities. So treat them accordingly. Speak as if everything you say is being weighed, watched, recorded. Because it is. By your allies, by your enemies, by yourself. Let others waste their breath. Let them prove how much they know. Let them drown in explanation and decoration. You speak like a blade, quick, clean, fatal, because when someone who rarely speaks finally does, the world listens. And if you've mastered your silence, then when you speak, you won't just be heard, you'll be remembered. Power is not always loud. It is not always seen. It is not always announced. Sometimes, the most powerful one in the room is the quietest, the one who watches, the one who listens, the one who speaks only when it matters. And when they do, everything shifts. Machiavelli knew this truth intimately. The real architect of power builds in silence, not with noise, not with spectacle, not with the desperate need to be acknowledged, but with clarity, with control, with absolute intentionality. The silent architect doesn't interrupt. He observes patterns, he notices weaknesses, he stores information like bricks. And when the time comes, he builds empires while others are still shouting. Because here's the secret. Power is not about being loud. It's about being inevitable, and inevitability doesn't scream, it whispers, it waits, it shapes the room without ever taking center stage. While others rush to be heard, to trend, to dominate conversations, the silent one is 5 steps ahead, redesigning the battlefield itself. Silence becomes the blueprint, every pause a calculation, every unreadable expression a layer of armor. And the architect, he doesn't chase control, he creates it. He doesn't just play the game, he bends the rules quietly. Until others are dancing to music he never had to play out loud. This is the end game, not to win arguments, not to be liked, not even to be understood, but to build a structure so unshakable that no opinion, no outburst, no chaos can reach the foundation. And when people finally notice, when they wonder how you rose without noise, how you gained influence without begging for it, they'll call it luck or mystery or manipulation, but you'll know the truth. You built it in silence. You waited. You listened. You acted only when it was time. That's what it means to be the silent architect of power. And no one can take that away from you. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be popular. You don't need to explain who you are to anyone who doesn't deserve to know. What you need is stillness, discipline, presence. In a world drunk on noise, your silence is rebellion. In a world desperate to be seen, your mystery is power. And in a world that fears uncertainty, your restraint becomes your edge. Machiavelli never taught us to be weak. He taught us to be strategic, to think 5 moves ahead, to observe before acting, to speak only when silence has done its work. You don't have to prove anything. Your silence already did. You don't have to react to everything. Your restraint already won, because power doesn't shout. It waits, it watches, and then, when the time is right, it speaks once, and that's enough. So from this moment on, be the one who listens longer, speaks sharper, moves quieter, and when you strike, make it final. Become untouchable, not because you hide, but because you've mastered yourself so completely that no one else ever holds the reins. Your silence is not absence. It is control. It is dominance. It is the final form of power. And if you've listened this far, then part of you already knew that. You're not here to be heard. You're here to be felt. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them expose themselves. You'll move in silence and build an empire no one saw coming.